In this video, I'm going to show you how to take a 2D logo and transform it into a 3D logo, add a couple lighting and tweak the materials and add some animation to your cameras to really make your 3D logo pop. So let's hop into the video. The default cube deleted. One thing that we want to do is import a SVG. So a SVG is just an image that Blender will recognize so that we can transform it into a 3D object. So we're going to go to File and we're going to go to Import. Now, import, we're going to scale all the way down and we're going to go to scalable vector graphic, or short SVG. So once we click it, we're going to go ahead and find where our file is located and import it. So we're going to go ahead and click the Oklahoma City Thunder logo.svg, and all the files that we're using in this project will be on my Patreon for free. So make sure you sign up so that you get all the project files. So we're going to go ahead and select it and we're going to import SVG. Once we import it, you can see that it imported it extremely small. So one thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to our collection, which it made for us. We're going to right click and then we're going to go down to select all objects. Now what this is going to do is everything that is in our collection, think of a collection as a folder or a group, it's going to select all of it. So we're just going to, once again, right click, select objects, and then we're going to scale this up. Now one thing that we want to do is rotate it on x-axis. So we're going to hit shortcut R, then X, and then we're going to type in 90 to rotate it at 90 degrees, and now you can see that it's straight. All right, so we're just going to hide the thunder just for now and just focus on the actual symbol of the OKC Thunder. All right, so now that we have this imported, you can see that it looks a little glitchy, but do not worry. The reason that's happening, if we just move this over with a G, we can see that because this is a thin image and they're on top of each other, we're having some clipping issues. Now you can easily fix that by just hitting G and Y and to move it back just a little bit. And we could do that with this section also. So we're gonna hit G, Y, and then just hold down Shift. And we're gonna move this one also, G, Y, hold down Shift. And as you can see, the more we bring it back, the more we will reveal. And we are no longer getting that clipping issue. Look at our right side, we can see that each object that was imported, it imported it as a curve. So that gives us a lot of options to work with. So we're gonna go ahead and begin with the OKC. We're gonna go scroll down to the curve section and we're gonna go ahead and scroll down to geometry. As you can see, we have a lot of options that we can work with. And once we increase the extrude, you can see how we're extruding that flat 2D image into something that's 3D. But we don't want it this intense, so we're gonna do something like 0.009. And if we scroll down to our bevel, once we increase the bevel, you can see we're beveling out the edges. But once again, we don't want a crazy amount. So what we're going to do is 0.0005. And we're going to hit enter. So this gives us a nice bevel that is not overpowering. So let's go ahead and adjust the other curves of the logo. For the shield, we're going to go ahead and extrude this by 0.005. There we go. That's looking good. And then we're going to take these also, and we're just going to make it just a little bit bigger. So 0.06, there we go. And we're also going to do that to the blue one, 0.006. There we go. And then let's go ahead and extrude these other pieces. We can play around with it till we find something that we like, something that's interesting. So 0.002 works pretty good. And then we're going to go ahead and extrude orange part to something like that. But we don't want it exactly the same. So we'll go ahead and bring this down to 3. There we go. So that we're getting some depth. And then for this one, we're going to do 0.002. All right. So that's looking good so far. Now let's go ahead and adjust the textures so that we get something that's interesting. So I'm going to just go to the corner and I'm going to drag over and I'm going to go to my shader editor. So while we're in the shader editor, one thing that we're going to do is use nodes. And now you can see that we have a new nodes group. Now this is the principal BSDF. This is where we're going to be changing the color, the metallic, the roughness, and also the emission. So we're going to leave the base color and everything else, but we're going to adjust the metallic a little bit to our metallic. And then for our roughness, if we bring this all the way down, you can see it's more like a glassy texture or something that looks like a ceramic. And if you bring it all the way up, it is something like a dull plastic. So we're going to bring the roughness down to about 0.3 so that we have some shine and reflection. And then we're going to go ahead to our emission and then we're just going to boost it up by 1. So we're going to go to the first Thunderbolt and we're going to hit use nodes. Once we add the use nodes, you can see that our color disappears. So one thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to re-import the SVG so that we have something for a color reference. So I'm just going to put it to the side right now. And I'm going to go to my Thunderbolt. I'm going to hit base color, and I'm going to take this little eyedropper, and I'm just going to choose the color. So now you can see we have our color back. So I'm going to go to the emission. So I'm going to bring the strength to 1. Now I could do the same thing with the eyedropper, but this is a nice cool trick. We can take the base color and just drag and drop, and that will apply the color to wherever we drop it. All right, so that's looking good. Let's go ahead and work on the blue one. Same thing. We're going to go ahead and use node, and then we're going to take our eyedropper, and we're going to select this blue. Then we're going to go to our emission, same thing, select that, and then we're going to put this at 1. Now, once we add our lights and our background, we're going to play with the emission to really dial it in and bring it to life. Now, we're going to do something a little different for the strength on the blue color. What we're going to do, we're going to drag it out, and we're going to search for layer weight. For our blend, we're just going to drop it to 150. That's going to give us a different type of emission. All right, so now that we have our materials down there, let's go ahead and change our settings to cycles. We're going to do experimental, GPU compute. We're going to turn on our denoising, and then we're going to go ahead and see how this looks. All right, perfect. We're going to go ahead and delete the default light, and then we're going to take our camera, and if we let's make this let's make our shader editor a little smaller. And if we hit this little icon, our shortcut N, we can go to view and then camera to view. So now if we go to our camera by hitting numpad 0, we can select the OKC and rotate around it. Now, as you can see, our logo is not in the middle of our center and our origin actually off. So I'm going to select every piece of my logo, and I'm going to go up to object. I'm going to go to set origin to geometry. So I'm going to select OKC, and I'm going to hit Shift S, which will bring in my snapping menu, and I'm going to go to cursor to selected. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a empty with Shift A, and I'm going to go down to empty, and we're going to make this an arrow. That's fine. And then we're going to select everything. And if we look in our layers, we can see that everything is selected and our empty is yellow. So what we want to do now is make sure that our empty is our parent. So we're going to hit Control P, which will bring a set parent, and we're going to go to Object, Keep Transform. Now this is the cool thing about Blender's empty. So if we select our empty and we move it around, you can see now we're moving everything all together versus moving everything individually. So we're going to hit Shift S once again, and we're going to go cursor toward origin. And then we're going to make sure our empty is selected, and we're going to Shift S again, and then selection to cursor. All right, so that's going to bring our OKC to the middle of the world. And now we're going to go ahead and hide this other one. There we go, to the middle. All right, so we're going to go ahead and select our camera and make sure we're on the item tab. And we're just going to zero out everything in our camera. And then on the Y, we're going to push it back until we have the OKC in a good place. And we want to take our X and make sure that we're on 90 so that it's perfect, and make sure these are zeroed out also. So right now we have a camera that's only rotated 90 degrees on X. All right, and then we can go ahead and frame this. Now that we have our camera set, we can go back to our view and turn off camera to view. And we're going to go ahead and break that. And then we're going to select OKC, Shift A, and we're going to add a mesh plane. And we're going to go ahead and scale it up. And then we're going to rotate it on the X axis by 90 degrees. Now you can see we have something that is looking more interesting. Now I'm going to go back to my shader and just mess with the second lightning bolt. And I'm going to bring my blend on my layer weight up just a little bit. So let's go ahead and change our lighting. So on the shader tab, we're going to go to object and we're going to go to world. So once we go to our world tab, now we can add a image just hitting Control T. If you hit Control T and it doesn't work, that's because you need to enable the Node Wrangler add-on, which is super easy. You go to Edit, Preference, go to Add-ons, and you just type in Node Wrangler and hit this check button. Then once you select your background and you hit Control T, you should have these chained nodes together. So we're going to go ahead and add a HDR image. The HDR image is just going to be used for the global illumination of the entire scene. So we're going to go hit open, and we're going to go to the Studio Small 06 4K HDRI, and we're going to go ahead and open. Now you can use any HDR that you like. If you don't know where to find HDR, you can look on HDR Haven, or just type into Google free HDR. There's going to be a lot of resources that you can use. All right, so now that we have our HDR in, you can see how it's illuminating the scene. We're going to go back into our camera view, and we're going to drop down the strength to something about 0.2. Right, that's perfect. So we're going to go ahead and add a light. So we're going to go to light, and then we're going to select spot. So this is going to create something that looks like a spotlight, which is going to be really good for the effect that we're going for. We're going to make sure that our light is selected, and then we're going to move it forward with the G, and then we're going to select Y, and then we're going to slide it forward, and then we're going to rotate it on the x-axis 90 degrees. So even though we have a light, we can see that it's not really affecting our scene. If you just turn it on and off, you can see that nothing's happening. That's because our intensity is too low. So one thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and increase it to about 500. And now you can see we're getting a little bit light. So we're going to go ahead and turn this into 5,000. Now we're getting something that looks good. Now we're going to go ahead and make sure that it's selected, and we're going to hit G, and we're going to slide it all about here halfway, and then we're going to rotate it on the Z axis. There you go, something like that. And then we're also, for the soft, make sure soft fallout is selected, and we're going to increase the radius to get something that's nice and smooth. All right, so with our general lighting set, let's go ahead and work on the background. Now that was a texture that I got from polygon.com, and that also will be on my Patreon. Everything that I'm using will be in a bundle, a collection, so that you can just download everything and have the files to work on this project. So we're going to make sure that we select our plane. Make sure that our plane is selected, and then we're going to get out the world tab and go back to our object, and we're going to select new material. And then what we want to do is Shift Control T, and that's going to open up a menu where we can select all our images that we want to use. All we need to do is select all of our image and then import them. And now you can see Node Wrangler automatically puts everything all together, your mapping, your textures, and everything. Now, if I hold down Shift Control left click, I can cycle through all of my textures that will be making up this shader. So one thing that I want to do, I just want to make a little bit of space. I actually want to delete this displacement because we don't need it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that, and I'm going to drag my principal out. Now, the first thing that we want to do is mix these two. So I'm going to hold down Shift Control, and I'm going to add a mix node, and then I'm going to turn this into multiply and then bring it all the way up. Now, if I hold down Shift Control and I left click it again, you can see what this is doing. So if I bring this all the way down, you can see that A is being revealed. And if I go all the way to the right, A and B are being multiplied together. So this is the base color, and then this is when we add our ambient occlusion. All right, so that's looking good so far, but let's bring this texture up another notch. So we're gonna take our normal, we're gonna take the color, just gonna click it and drag, and then we're gonna go to color ramp, and then we're gonna select our color ramp to see what it's doing. All right, so right now, what we're going to do, we're gonna crunch our values until we get some more detail. And I'm going to take my white, and I'm actually going to bring it to something like that. There you go. So that looks good, and we can further adjust it as we're moving forward. And I'm going to mix this with our multiply node, and I'm going to change the mix to soft light, and I'm going to bring the factor all the way up. So now you can see the difference. So when using this technique, we're adding more richness to the color. Let's go back to our camera view, and if we bring this all the way down, you can see how the texture is a little bland, but once we bring in that soft light from our normal, you can see we're getting a nice image, and we can crunch this even more to bring out the details. So let's go ahead and work on the roughness. We're going to go ahead and add a color ramp, and we're just going to drag and drop on our image that says roughness. Now, the way roughness works, whatever is dark is the most reflective, whatever is white is the most dull. Which is a middle color of black and white, which is gray and a little bit variation. But what we want is more variations to bring out the details. So one thing that we're going to do, we're going to bring the black up, and then we're also going to bring the white parts down until we get something that looks like this. And then let's see how this is affecting our image. So now you can see we have way more detail coming through. There you go. Let's continue to adjust this just a little bit more. Now you can see how our material is being affected by the light. All right, so now that we have our background texture, let's go ahead and adjust our spotlight. We're gonna make sure that it's selected. Let's go ahead and make this just a little bit bigger. And what I'm going to do is just bring it closer in. So I'm gonna hold down G, Y, and I'm also going to move it over until we get something that looks like this. Now I'm gonna go ahead and hit Control B, and I'm going to make a box around here. So what this is doing is just going to confine our render only to our camera so that our computer is not rendering out the outside. Let's go ahead and adjust emission very quickly just to make some of these a little bit brighter. So I'm going to select the OKC, and I'm going to hit home to view everything. And I'm just going to make this just a little bit brighter. There you go. And then I'm going to take the red, and I'm going to make sure that it's very saturated. And I'm also going to change the strength to 2 just to give it a little bit more pop. And then for the blue color, we're also going to make it just a little bit darker. Right there is good. And then for our color, we're going to just make this pure white. And then we're going to add our Fresnel back. All right, so that looks a little bit better. Now, one thing that I'm noticing is that our logo is just a little bit too sharp. So let's quickly adjust that by clicking each piece. We're going to go to our curve properties, and we're going to go to bevel. And then we're going to type in 0.005 for each one. Let's go ahead and bevel this one out too. And also the basketball. All right, so that's looking good. Let's go ahead and begin to animate it. Now, the first thing that I want to do is this reveal effect, which is mad easy. All we're going to be doing is taking the background and moving it back and forth to reveal the logo. So I'm going to open up my timeline, and I'm going to go to the end. But before I do that, I want to make sure that my frame rate is on 30 frames per second. And I'm going to chop it down to 2.5. So now we have a range from 1 all the way to 205. Now for our last position to be fully revealed, so I'm just going to back this up until everything is revealed. There you go, something like that. So I'm moving it on the Y. So right there is good. And I'm going to hit I to set a keyframe, and I'm going to do location. Then I'm going to go to the beginning, bring this, and I'm just going to bring this forward until the logo begins right about there. And I'm going to hit I, location. So now if we play this, you see we are slowly getting that reveal effect. Now, we're not just going to stop there. Let's go ahead and animate the camera. So we're going to go to the middle just so we can see what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and turn on our overlays. And then what we're going to do, we're going to add a empty. Let's just make this a cube so we can see what we're doing. And then we're going to parent the camera to our empty. So we're going to select both of them and make sure that our empty is yellow. If not, it's going to do it backwards. So once that's selected, we're going to hit Control P, and I like to do Object Keep Transform, and I'm going to go to my camera view. So now if I move my empty, I should be able to move the camera. All right, that's perfect. And we're just going to rotate this. We're not going to do it that. We're going to do it from the bottom. So we could do something extreme like this, but we're going to do something like, let's say, don't want to cut off the background right there. And then we're going to go to the beginning. We're going to hit I, location, rotation, and scale. And then we're going to go to the end. And then we're going to rotate it on the x-axis until we're about parallel with it. Right about there. And then location, rotation, and scale. And then let's play and see how it looks. One thing I'm noticing in the animation, that the reveal effect is finishing before we actually go. So what I'm going to do is just take the keyframe of the background and just move it to about 220, and let's see how that. All right, so in the beginning, it's way too slow to be revealed. So I'm going to select this and just drag our first keyframe out until, let's go to the beginning. Okay, right there is good. Before it goes to a complete stop, we want to get this looping effect, and that's super easy. So we already have an empty that's controlling our logo, right? So one thing that we're going to do is We're going to go to about 170, and we're going to put a keyframe for location, rotation, and scale on our empty. And then we want to go to about 200. And then what we're going to do is scale it up, and then we're going to bring it forward about right here. And we're going to hit I, location, rotation, and scale, and let's see how that looks. All right, that's a little bit too slow. So what we're going to do, we're just going to bring these in closer and bring these towards the end. All right, that's still too slow. So let's just make it really tight. All right, so now we get this looping animation. So I really like this effect because it feels very, very simple, but it also looks cool, like it's growing from the ground. So that concludes today's video. Keep a lookout for the next upcoming videos. Think about this video as an introduction to more complicated things that we'll be doing with sports animation, logos, and a lot of exciting tutorials.